Welcome to the Ed Leader's Edge podcast, where we interview innovators and thought leaders in the field of education who are helping students thrive. I'm your host, Ed Madison. I'm a professor and researcher at the University of Oregon, an educational consultant, and serve as executive director of the Journalistic Learning Initiative, a nonprofit organization that empowers elementary, middle, and high school students to discover their voice, improve academic outcomes, and become self-directed learners through project-based storytelling. Welcome to our program. Well, welcome back to the podcast. Mark Kowalski is an innovative media and technology teacher at the William Davies Middle School in Hamilton Township, New Jersey. Mark exemplifies the kind of educator who goes above and beyond. He's known as the standing on the desk teacher. We'll find out more about that. Who will do whatever it takes to engage students in learning. His students produce Dragon Student News, which we'll also learn more about. Mark brings a unique combination of real-world media experience and passionate teaching to his work in the classroom. Welcome, Mark. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Let's start by talking about, this was you've done a number of things, everything from human resources at McDonald's to writing, for defense work, reporting, all kinds of stuff. How did you bring that to teaching? What got you motivated?
It's funny because you mentioned my first job, McDonald's. I fresh out of my sophomore year of high school. Yeah, so I started working in human resources. Yeah, when I was 18 years old, I was handed the keys to like 3 restaurants, but I grew from there. I went to school for broadcast journalism and political science. And I currently work for a major newspaper, but I've worked for major news networks, local news networks. I started in radio, and I kind of realized I needed to be doing something a little bit more. And for me, that was teaching. I didn't know at the time that I would be teaching what I'm teaching today. I was a special education teacher, a 5th grade teacher, a kindergarten teacher, and now I am the media and technology teacher here at Davies. And it's been a journey, but I've loved every minute of it.
Well, we have a lot of mostly superintendents on, but it's always great to talk to, teachers who are on the front line of working with students, and particularly when you're, given that your expertise is media arts. And because I think that we're still at a stage where there's not fully an understanding of the importance of just media arts, which is close to home here in terms of the work that we do within JLI. Yeah. So explain for folks who might think, hey, shouldn't we be doubling down on writing and math and all that? Why media arts? Why you find that's valuable for students?
So I'll start from my heart because, I'm a journalist. I'm still a journalist. I started my career as a journalist, and I'll always be a journalist. For what we do in my program, though, I teach film. I teach news, but journalistic ethics as well. But I'm teaching them career and technical skills, and I think for me that's the biggest thing. I'm trying to prepare students for if they want to become a sports commentator or a news anchor or if they want to be a great editor or animator. We're giving students those opportunities in middle school. And that is unheard of. That doesn't usually happen until high school, and even freshman year of high school. A lot of students don't get that opportunity. And my program is unique, and what I would say to those teachers or to anybody, who wants to know about why we're doubling down on this is because it brings something out of students in such a pivotal point in their life. School in general is an experiment, but middle school and teachers of middle school know middle school is an experiment. There's so many things going on at once, and to give students an opportunity, even the quietest kids, an opportunity to have like a voice in a different way, through video, through animation, through script writing, through photography, is just amazing to see. And I've seen so many of our quietest students and our most vulnerable and our most at-risk students, be engaged with what we're doing and learn more, and want to learn more. And it's helped them in other aspects
Yeah.
as well.
And we talk so much about learning loss post COVID. So the kids you're working with, they would have been about what age when we were in the midst of sort of the shutdowns and all that?
Oof. So that was what,
Yeah,
4 years
right.
ago now, five
Yeah.
years ago. So they would have probably been about, like, they're my oldest kids are 14, so I would say they were about like
Nine
9
or
or
10.
10. I'm
Yeah, so
teaching
they
7th and
definitely,
8th graders.
some of them
Yeah.
were going to elementary school like the way you and I are talking right now. Have you noticed
Yep.
anything specific about just additional support that they may need?
You want to know what it's funny because you would think students with who are always playing Fortnite, who are always on the computer, who are always playing video games, they would log on the computer and they would be whizzes. And last year we started this program, and I went into this program thinking, all right, these kids are going to be able to get on the computers, they're going to be able to navigate, and they're going to be fine. That's going to be the least of my worries. Teaching the basics, how to find, documents, or how to, pull data off of a folder, creating a new folder, navigating to their email, and utilizing Google. There are, those are the gaps that I do see in my line. But when I was a fifth grade teacher, I saw even more gaps, socially. But I think that we are overcoming that hurdle, and we are definitely
Mhm.
making gains.
So
So I'm seeing
what
an
do
improvement.
you say to those who because we're also always talking about just the amount of screen time that kids are experiencing, and is a media arts program having students looking at screens more more than they would otherwise?
Yeah. So my argument to that is, and it has come up. There's screen time could be used for playing video games. Screen times could be used for doing things that are not productive. In my class, when students are behind this, are on the screen, or are on the computer, they're doing something that is productive, but most importantly, it is doing something to build on skills that they've learned in other classes. And one of the things that I absolutely love about my class is that we're bringing in standards, we're bringing in, uh, we're bringing in things that they're doing in English class and in science class, and they're all able to, do that on the computer. They're all able to do that in front of the screen. But I would make the argument that what we're doing in front of the screen is extremely important, because it's setting them up for a future career if that's what they intend to do in the future. So I think it's the way we interpret the screen time. It's what
Hmm.
we do.
So,
It's what
so
we
for an
do
educator who
on the
might
screen.
be listening or watching this podcast, or even an administrator with a team of educators who might say, "Hey, this sounds great, but I have no training or understanding in where to even start." Is there advice that you have? I mean, one of the things we keep talking about, and this is the subject we were just on, is like getting the devices out of kids' hands. But how do you how does a teacher, or an administrator who's watching this even take the first step towards bringing media arts into their classroom?
I, it's funny you asked for advice. I would be like, does anybody have advice for me? I walk in every day and I'm like, what are we doing today? Nah, what I would say, all joking aside, what I would say is, um, believe in the kids, believe in the students, believe in their ability. That would be an incredible launching point. Look, we started this program with 4 cameras. I had classes of 30. We started with 4 cameras because we didn't know what we were getting into. And I trusted in the kids, and they produced incredible stuff. They scripted incredible stuff. We are still doing incredible stuff, but my first year, or last year, it was a learning curve for everybody, and we really didn't know what we wanted this program to be. And it My students are the most watched middle school YouTube channel in New Jersey. Like,
How many how many how
they did
many
that with four
subscribers? I'm
cameras.
curious. Let's step away from our conversation for a moment for me to tell you about the Journalistic Learning Initiative's innovative educational tools and services. Of special note is JLI's Comfort Corner initiative, a video library featuring near-peer role models sharing about their mental health journeys. This innovative resource destigmatizes mental health challenges, provides a gateway to seeking professional help, and supports your students in realizing they're not alone. If you're looking to make the best decision for your teaching staff and students about AI adoption, improving student engagement, strengthening writing skills, promoting social media mindfulness, or enhancing college and career readiness, please take a moment to visit our website at journalisticlearning.org. Our team of University of Oregon researchers offer customized AI tools, instructional materials, professional development, and consulting. Research confirms that students with journalistic learning experience outperform their peers on numerous key indicators for college and career readiness. At the heart of our work is empowering learners to become effective communicators. If you think about it, effective communication is critical in every human interaction, whether it's writing an essay for a grade or being interviewed to secure employment. Since 2015, JLI has benefited nearly 20,000 students and served schools in 15 states and the District of Columbia. I invite you to schedule an appointment to explore how JLI can improve your students' learning outcomes. Now back to our program.
So subscribers, we are teetering just under 2,000, but cumulative views we're approaching 600,000. 600,000. Yeah, and it's all them, it is all them. And so my advice would be to believe in the students. It is that if you walk into my classroom, I tell my students every day, we are a family, we are a class family. All 120 of us, we're a class family. And, I will tell you, Ed, these kids absolutely believe in this program more than anybody. They come in and they think that, or they should think, but they believe that they're a part of this incredible thing, and they are. And, the community and the family that we've built is what I'm most proud of. So it has nothing to do with the technology. It has nothing to do with the computers, the cameras, or anything like that, but belief in the students. And once you have that belief, I think that is, you could just take it and
and you're speaking to something else. You use the word "we" a lot, and I think that what I've observed in my study of this, and also hopefully the way I work with my own undergraduate students, is that it should be a collective exploration of learning together. Traditional education has been so hierarchical, where it's kind of like the what they say, the sage on the stage, as opposed to the guide on the side. But that really, when teachers are willing to admit that they don't know everything, and that we're learning together, it's very makes the students feel more comfortable, and it creates a learning environment that's more beneficial, I think, for all. Would you say?
Absolutely, I agree. I get up and we just did a photography unit, and the kids know my background. I edited and I produced for major news networks, and I tell them, I'm like, videography is not, or I'm sorry, photography is not my strongest suit, guys. This is not Mr. K's strongest suit. Videography's news, and that is my strongest suit. So we're going to learn together. And we were talking about the exposure triangle, and I messed something up. And they, one of my kids that literally started a business, this year for, sports photography, because he's so into it, interrupted and was like, Mr. K, that is not what aperture means. And I'm like, you are 100% right. And I think that builds,
that would be mortifying for most teachers,
right?
to have a student correct them like that publicly, but
that is so important, though. And look, I am nowhere near a veteran teacher. And, I want to give a shout out to all the veteran teachers here at Davies who have done nothing but help me, and they know nothing about my nothing about the class, but they do their best to help me. I'm nowhere near a veteran teacher. But what I will say is I think that is so important for the classroom culture and community, for the teacher to just be, for the teacher to be vulnerable in that way. That is super
Hmm.
important.
So tell me about this standing on the desk. I have images of Robin Williams, in whatever that movie was about Seize the Day. When do you stand on
Yeah.
the desk and what do you do? Goodwill Hunting. That was the
So
movie. That was the movie I
my
was trying to think of.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. My middle schoolers are going to laugh if they see this, because they were just laughing. They call me Unk. Apparently it means that, like, when I stand up, like, my knees crack because I'm getting old or something. I don't know. So they're going to be like, "What do you mean you're standing on the desk?" Uh, the reality is like, when you're in a classroom, and going back to when I was teaching fifth grade to kindergarten special education, and what I'm doing now, if I never, this wasn't, I'm an alternate route teacher. I didn't do the normal student teaching route. Um, you know, so I'm really in this, right? My thing is, if I don't want to come into school every day and stand on the desk and get these kids to learn, then I no longer can do this. And I could say definitively that when I come into school, I will stand on the desk to get the kids, to learn. If that's what it's going to take, I want to do that, because um, their their time with me, I only have 40 minutes with them, but their time with me is so important. And I want them to see, I want them to see somebody that cares for them genuinely as a person. And if I'm standing on the desk and I'm teaching something, they're going to know that I'm passionate, and I'm passionate for them, and what they can do. So, that was just kind of like a play on, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get your child to
Hmm.
learn, to get the student to learn. And that is 100%
Hmm.
the truth.
Mark, one of the things I talk to a lot of people about on this podcast is just sort of oh my God, the sort of pervasive sort of negativity about public education. And I'm gathering
Mm-hmm.
that it must really help when parents see, like the dragon student news, or when they see what
Mm-hmm.
their kids are capable of. And maybe that's what we need more
Yep.
of, is sort of documenting, like the magic that happens in the classroom, so that parents can really sort of see, what's going on.
I would agree, and I'm really lucky because I have some really incredible families that have rallied around, what we do. They're sharing it on Facebook, and that's that. Look, I'm biased, but I think that I, work in the best district in the nation. We're the parents and community members and my board of education, my incredible administrators. They share, the news out, on Facebook and social media, Twitter, and what have you. And for a news program, that's really important. Like, my students are younger than the high schoolers, so the only way that we look at analytics is the views, right? And that's what drives them to do more. It's not all that drives them, but it's a big driving force and a big driving
Yeah.
factor. I tell my students, it's not always about the views. It's about the content in which we produce, but the views are a big part. So I'm lucky to have an incredible community that goes out of their way to share our
Yeah, you're
stuff.
bringing up a point that is maybe one last area to talk about, which is social media. We've got several school districts, even Seattle Public Schools, like suing some of the social media platforms, because we're finding out that, particularly for middle schoolers and middle school girls, just there's so much cyberbullying going on, and just it's affecting self perceptions of body image, and I can speak for
Mm-hmm.
myself, having two boys who were kind of coming through middle school when Snapchat was becoming a thing, and just the notion that you can put something out there and it disappears gives license for all kinds of behaviors that we don't want. So I'm just curious, in that sort of I'm sure you're promoting, the kids are promoting what they're doing through Instagram and other things. How do you draw this line of distinction so that they understand that utilizing these platforms also comes with a responsibility, and also the need to set boundaries?
Absolutely, absolutely. And safety, is our computer safety. Safety is our number one priority. One of the one of the most important parts about my job is media literacy and teaching students the ability, teaching students why it's important to be cautious when you're on social media. But more to what we do on YouTube. One of the things that we have implemented immediately is that people are not allowed to comment on anything. They're not allowed to comment on the Instagram. They're not allowed to comment on YouTube. Or our Facebook, we just shut that off. And the biggest reason is the most important people that are watching this are walking our hallway, right? The most important people that are watching this are the families. And if they have any comments or they have any critiques, they're going to email me directly. Secondly, all of our stuff, when I say it's on YouTube for kids. So, you could definitely access it, but it's on, YouTube for kids. And, students are aware that, what we might think is funny, 80 billion people, might not think it's funny. And, I think if I can give myself a pat on the back, I've done a really good job of vetting some of the things that, especially some of my 7th grade boys put together, and not throwing it up on YouTube and Instagram. And, I'm lucky to have such an incredible administrative team, and I think that's the most important part, right? So, if I have an idea that's scrolling through my mind, or I have something that I want to do, I can bounce ideas off of my principal, or I could bounce my ideas off of my supervisor, and they'll tell me, nah, don't do that. That's not what we're thinking. That's not what we're thinking. But 99%, like my principal, 99% of the time, she's like, Mark, roll with it. You're good. And I think that is so important. She's amazing. And my VPs are amazing too. They'll just give me the green light. But, I really, really love that I can go to them with an idea and they'll be like, no, we're not doing that. I think that's super important because they want to protect me. They want to protect the students, and they care enough about the program to know that's not going to work. And I think and going back to the advice piece, to teachers and administrators that want to get this started, know your surroundings, know your community, but also have incredible administrators to rally around you, incredible teachers and mentor teachers to rally around you to say, no, that's not a good look, or no, you should go a different way. You know what I mean? It's not a good look. And it doesn't happen often. But we're all human. We're all human, and we just want the best for our students. And people take things in different directions, but everything that we do is positive. That's the vibe we bring. And I always tell students before they make a video, how is this positive? How are we going to turn this into a life lesson? How is this positive? Because that is the most important thing that we're doing. Everything else comes later. All that the editing and the journalistic integrity comes later. I'm teaching you confidence. I'm trying to build your confidence, and that's what comes first.
Mark Kowalski, you are quite an inspiring teacher, doing media and technology at William Davies Middle School in Hamilton Township, New Jersey. How do people find you, your school's website, and maybe even access some of the students' work? How do they do that?
Yeah, so we are on all of the platforms that you could find, podcasts. So we're running podcasts right now. So we're on iHeartRadio and Spotify. But if you want to watch the news, or if you want to see my students in action, you could go to youtube.com and search up the Dragon Network. And we have a dragon. It says TDN. Or you can go on Instagram and follow us at WDMS Media.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
The Ed Leader's Edge podcast is produced by the Journalistic Learning Initiative. Please check out our latest books, Language Arts in Action from W.W. Norton Publishing, and Raising Empowered Learners from Rauman and Littlefield. For more information about our work, please visit journalisticlearning.org or edleaderedge.org. Thanks for listening.